Good evening, everyone. I want to start tonight by talking about something that has been a constant in our lives, and that is the concept of being nice, we've been told. For as long as we can remember, that being nice is a virtue. We've been told to be kind, to put others' needs ahead of our own, to avoid conflict at all costs. But here's the thing, kindness is not the same as people-pleasing, and being nice doesn't always serve us or others in the way we think it does. In a world where we're constantly surrounded by expectations, whether from family, friends, coworkers, or society at large, it can feel like we need to mold ourselves to fit the idea of what others think we should be. This pressure to please others can become so ingrained in our daily lives that we lose sight of who we truly are. Being nice becomes synonymous with saying yes to things we don't want to do, hiding our true feelings, and going along with the flow to avoid any potential conflict. But here's the truth: when we prioritize people-pleasing over authenticity, we end up betraying ourselves. Authenticity is not about being perfect or always getting it right. It's about being real, showing up in the world as you are, and being unapologetic about your needs, desires, and boundaries. It means that instead of performing for others, you allow yourself to be fully seen, flaws and all, without trying to shape your actions or words to win approval. We often believe that being liked or accepted is the ultimate goal, especially when we want to maintain peace or keep relationships intact. But in the long run, this constant need to please others can leave us feeling empty, exhausted, and disconnected from our true selves. The irony is that when we focus on being liked by everyone, we end up losing our sense of self. The more we try to be everything to everyone, the less we are able to truly connect with others in a meaningful way. People can sense when we're being inauthentic, even if it's not obvious on the surface, and often these surface-level relationships end up feeling shallow and unsatisfying. Choosing authenticity over people-pleasing means allowing yourself to express your truth, even when it feels uncomfortable or vulnerable. It means being okay with disappointing others because you know that your integrity and emotional health matter more than trying to fit into someone else's version of who you should be. This doesn't mean you have to be harsh or unkind. It simply means being honest about what you need, what you feel, and what you're willing or not willing to do. It's important to recognize that authenticity doesn't come with the need for constant validation. The act of pleasing others typically stems from a fear of rejection or the belief that our worth is tied to what others think of us. But when we let go of that need for external validation, we free ourselves to act in alignment with our true values, not based on what we think others expect. In the process, we develop a sense of self-worth that doesn't hinge on the approval of others, but on our own inner knowing. Being authentic also means being brave enough to set boundaries. Sometimes being true to ourselves means saying no, even when we know it might disappoint someone. It's an act of self-respect, of refusing to give away our time, energy, or emotional resources to things or people that drain us. Authenticity means we get to choose who and what we give our energy to, instead of automatically agreeing to everything in the name of being liked or helpful. When we make the choice to prioritize authenticity over people-pleasing, we create deeper, more fulfilling relationships. Instead of spending our energy pretending to be something we're not, we can connect with others from a place of honesty and vulnerability. True relationships are built on mutual respect and understanding, not on pretending to be perfect or constantly striving to meet others' expectations. So in 2025, let's commit to authenticity. Let's free ourselves from the exhausting pursuit of approval and embrace the power of showing up exactly as we are. Because at the end of the day, the people who truly matter will appreciate us for who we really are, not for the version of ourselves we create in an attempt to please them. For many of us, the word boundary may evoke feelings of discomfort. It can feel harsh, even selfish, to set limits, particularly when we've been conditioned to prioritize others' needs over our own. We're often told that to be kind, compassionate, and loving, we should give freely of our time, energy, and resources. The idea of saying no or asserting our own limits may seem unkind or even rude. But here's a crucial truth: setting boundaries is not only healthy, but it's also necessary for building sustainable relationships and maintaining our well-being. Boundaries are a fundamental part of self-care. and they are an expression of self-respect. Without boundaries, we risk overextending ourselves, leading to burnout, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. The more we give without limits, the more we deplete ourselves, often leaving little energy for the things and people that truly matter to us. Boundaries are not about cutting people off or being difficult. They are about creating the space we need to preserve our emotional, and mental health. When we set boundaries, we are taking responsibility for our own needs and emotions. We are acknowledging that we have the right to say no to things that drain us, to ask for what we need, and to protect ourselves from situations or people that are toxic or unbalanced. This is an act of self-care, not selfishness. In fact, setting boundaries is one of the most loving things we can do for ourselves and for others. By preserving our energy and emotional health, we are better able to show up for the people we care about without resentment or exhaustion. One of the key misunderstandings about boundaries is the idea that they are inherently selfish. We may fear that if we set boundaries, we will be seen as uncaring or uncivil. This fear is rooted in the misconception that love means always putting others first. However, true love, whether for ourselves or others, requires balance. If we constantly put others' needs above our own, we start to lose sight of our own identity and well-being. Our relationships may become one-sided, and we may even start to feel trapped in the expectations of others. By setting boundaries, we communicate that we are worthy of respect and that our needs are just as important as anyone else's. Healthy boundaries are not about drawing a hard line between ourselves and others. They're about understanding where we end and where others begin. They're about recognizing our limits and communicating those limits in a clear and respectful way. For example, if you're feeling overwhelmed by a request or commitment, it's okay to say no or to ask for more time to think it over. Setting boundaries doesn't mean that you're rejecting the other person. It simply means that you're honoring your own needs in that moment. Setting boundaries is also a way to cultivate emotional intelligence. When we set clear limits, we practice assertiveness and self-awareness, which are key aspects of emotional maturity. We recognize our own feelings, acknowledge our needs, and communicate them in a way that is direct and compassionate. It's not about being rigid or inflexible, rather. It's about being mindful of how our interactions impact our emotional health. Furthermore, healthy boundaries foster mutual respect in relationships. When we clearly communicate our limits, we create an environment where both parties feel valued and heard. Boundaries allow others to understand what we need in order to feel comfortable and safe. This respect for each other's needs strengthens the connection, rather than creating distance or conflict. It's also important to remember that setting boundaries is a skill that takes practice. We may not always get it right, and that's okay. The key is to start small and gradually build our confidence in asserting our limits. Whether it's learning to say no to an extra task at work or having a difficult conversation with a friend, each step we take toward setting boundaries is a step toward greater self-respect and healthier relationships. In 2025, I encourage all of us to prioritize setting healthy boundaries. Let go of the idea that putting others first means neglecting our own needs. Practice self-respect by communicating what we need when we need it and being unapologetic about it. Because when we protect our own well-being through boundaries, we not only protect ourselves, but we also create a foundation for stronger, more authentic relationships with the people around us. So remember, setting boundaries is not selfish. It is an essential part of self-care, and it is necessary for living a life that is aligned with our values, our health, and our happiness. When we honor our own boundaries, we teach others to honor them as well. And that is a gift to both ourselves and to everyone we encounter. You said, saying no is a form of self-respect. Expand the point. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT, saying no is a form of self-respect. For many of us, saying no can feel incredibly challenging. We are often conditioned to be accommodating, to say yes whenever someone asks for help, or to take on responsibilities even when we don't have the capacity. The pressure to please others can be so strong that we end up saying yes, even when we know it's not in our best interest. But here's the fundamental truth: saying no is not just about rejecting someone or something. It is a powerful act of self-respect and self-preservation. Saying no is a direct reflection of understanding your own limits, needs, and values. It's an acknowledgement that your time, energy, and emotional resources are finite, and that you have the right to decide where and how to invest them. In a culture that often values busyness and productivity above all else, we may feel guilty for saying no, fearing that it will make us appear unkind, unhelpful, or unreliable. But when we say yes to everything, we risk saying no to ourselves, our well-being, our peace of mind, and our ability to focus on what truly matters to us. When we say yes out of obligation or fear of disappointing others, we lose touch with what we truly need and desire. We can become overwhelmed, stressed, and resentful because we've taken on more than we can handle. Over time, this constant overcommitment can lead to burnout, anxiety, and even resentment toward the very people we've tried so hard to please. This is where the power of saying no comes in. By saying no, we protect our mental and emotional health and maintain a sense of balance in our lives. Saying no is also an expression of boundaries. It's a way of drawing a clear line between what is acceptable to us and what is not. Boundaries are necessary for maintaining healthy relationships, and saying no is a key part of establishing them. When we say no, we are communicating that we respect our own needs and are unwilling to sacrifice our well-being for the sake of pleasing others. It's a form of honoring our own time, space, and emotional capacity. Moreover, saying no can actually enhance the quality of our relationships. When we say yes to everything, we may end up spreading ourselves too thin, leaving little energy to show up authentically for those who truly matter. By saying no when it's necessary, we ensure that when we do say yes, it is with full presence and intention. We can give our best to the things that truly align with our values, passions, and goals, rather than resenting the commitments we've taken on out of guilt or obligation. The act of saying no is also a statement of trust in ourselves. It requires us to have confidence in our ability to prioritize and make choices that are in alignment with our needs. It's a declaration that we trust our judgment, that we know what is best for us, and that we are willing to stand firm in our decisions, even if others might not understand or approve. This self-trust builds resilience and empowers us to take control of our time and our lives. But it's not just about saying no to external demands, it's also about saying no to the inner critic that tells us we must constantly prove ourselves. The voice that says we should be everything to everyone, that we should always be helpful, productive, and busy can be loud and persistent. But when we say no to this inner pressure, we are choosing self-compassion over self-sacrifice. We are giving ourselves permission to rest, to take a step back, and to honor our own needs without feeling guilty. Saying no is a skill that requires practice, and it may feel uncomfortable at first. It can be difficult to disappoint others or to fear their reaction, but with time we learn that saying no does not mean we are unkind or unhelpful. In fact, it often means the opposite. It means that we care enough about ourselves to avoid burning out, and we care enough about others to give them our best energy when we do say yes. Here's the key: when we say no, we are also saying yes to something more important: our health, our happiness, and our ability to live a life that is aligned with our values. Saying no is a way of protecting our peace, our mental clarity, and our emotional stability. It allows us to show up as the best version of ourselves in the areas that matter most, whether that's in our relationships, our work, or our personal pursuits. So in 2025, let's start treating the word no with the respect it deserves. Let's recognize that it is not a rejection of others, but a commitment to ourselves. Let's practice saying no with confidence, without guilt, and without apology. Because when we say no to the things that drain us, we create space for the things that truly nourish and fulfill us. In doing so, we honor our own needs and model self-respect for others, creating a healthier, more balanced life for ourselves and for those we care about. We often think of conflict as something negative, something to be avoided at all costs. We worry that conflict will damage our relationships, create tension, or lead to unresolved issues. We've been conditioned to believe that peace means the absence of conflict. However, the reality is that conflict, when approached with the right mindset, can be one of the most powerful catalysts for growth, both personally and within our relationships. When we avoid conflict, we might temporarily preserve harmony, but in doing so, we also miss the opportunity to address underlying issues, to learn more about ourselves, and to deepen our understanding of others. Conflict is not inherently destructive. It's our response to conflict that shapes its outcome. When we view conflict as an opportunity for growth, we shift our perspective from fearing confrontation to embracing it as a necessary and transformative part of our journey. At its core, conflict reveals the differences that exist between us and others. These differences could be in values, opinions, expectations, or desires. While these differences can be challenging, they are also a sign of the richness and complexity of human interaction. Conflict allows us to confront and navigate these differences in a way that can bring clarity, deeper understanding, and even greater connection. When we embrace conflict, we are acknowledging that disagreements are a natural part of relationships and that they do not need to signal the end of a connection. Instead, they can be the starting point for more authentic and honest communication. When we engage in conflict, we are often forced to confront our own beliefs, feelings, and triggers. This self-awareness is a critical component of personal growth. Conflict has a way of shining a light on the areas where we may be holding on to limiting beliefs, unresolved emotions, or unmet needs. By addressing these areas head-on, we create the opportunity to heal and evolve. We may discover that some of our reactions are based on past experiences or fears that no longer serve us. Conflict then becomes a mirror reflecting our internal world and giving us the chance to examine our thoughts and behaviors. In relationships, conflict can serve as a way to build trust and intimacy. While it might seem counterintuitive, having difficult conversations when done respectfully and thoughtfully can actually strengthen our bonds with others. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable in conflict, expressing our true feelings and listening to the other person's perspective, we create a space for mutual understanding and respect. This openness fosters deeper emotional intimacy as both parties feel heard and validated. Conflict, when approached with empathy and a willingness to understand, has the potential to bring people closer rather than pull them apart. Moreover, embracing conflict means accepting that disagreements are a normal part of life. It's unrealistic to expect everyone to always agree with us or to avoid every confrontation. In fact, conflict can help us refine our ideas, challenge assumptions, and expand our perspectives. By engaging in thoughtful disagreement, we learn how to negotiate, compromise, and communicate more effectively. These skills are invaluable in all aspects of life, from work to friendships to family dynamics. The key to embracing conflict as a path to growth is to shift our mindset from one of avoidance to one of curiosity and openness. Rather than seeing conflict as something to be feared or suppressed, we can see it as a chance to gain insight into ourselves and others. Conflict invites us to ask important questions. What do I need? What are my values? What is the other person's perspective? How can we find a solution that honors both of our needs? When we approach conflict with this mindset, we move from a position of fear to one of empowerment and possibility. Of course, conflict needs to be handled constructively. It's not about shouting over each other, blaming, or attacking. It's about respectful communication, active listening, and mutual understanding. It's about acknowledging the emotions that arise without letting them control the situation. When we approach conflict with the intention of learning, growing, and improving the relationship, the conflict itself becomes a tool for transformation. By embracing conflict, we also cultivate resilience. Life will inevitably present us with disagreements, challenges, and moments of tension. But the more we engage with conflict in a healthy way, the better equipped we become to handle future challenges. Conflict helps us build the emotional muscle we need to navigate difficult situations with grace, confidence, and clarity. So in 2025, let's challenge ourselves to view conflict as a gift rather than a burden. Let's embrace it as an opportunity for growth, both within ourselves and in our relationships. By engaging with conflict constructively, we not only resolve issues, but also create a deeper sense of connection, understanding, and resilience. Conflict, when approached with respect and openness, is not something to fear, it's something to embrace, for it holds the potential to shape us into stronger, more compassionate individuals. Vulnerability is often viewed as a weakness or something to be avoided. We've been taught to protect ourselves, to present a polished, composed version of who we are to the world. We fear judgment, rejection, or being seen as inadequate. Yet vulnerability is the very foundation of authentic connection. It is through vulnerability that we allow ourselves to be fully known, and it is through this openness that real, deep connections are formed. Authenticity cannot exist without vulnerability. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we let go of the masks we wear to hide our insecurities, fears, and imperfections. Instead of presenting a facade, we offer the truth of who we are, our thoughts, feelings, and experiences, as raw and unrefined as they may be. It is this authenticity that creates a space where genuine connections can blossom. When we open ourselves to vulnerability, we take the risk of being seen, of being truly known by others. This can feel terrifying, as it means we expose our innermost selves, our struggles, our doubts, our pain. But this is where true connection begins. By allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, we invite others to do the same. We create an environment where both parties can share their real selves without the fear of judgment. This openness fosters empathy, trust, and understanding, forming the bedrock of meaningful relationships. Vulnerability is not about oversharing or revealing every detail of our lives. It's about choosing to show up authentically, to speak our truth, even when it feels uncomfortable. It's about letting go of the need for perfection and embracing our imperfections as part of what makes us human. When we share our struggles, our uncertainties, or our emotions, we allow others to see us in our full humanity. And in doing so, we create space for them to share their own vulnerabilities, which strengthens the bond between us. It's also important to recognize that vulnerability is not limited to moments of emotional openness. It can also manifest in our willingness to be vulnerable in our actions, our choices, and our decisions. It means stepping out of our comfort zone and embracing uncertainty, whether in relationships, career, or personal growth. Vulnerability is the courage to try something new, to ask for help, or to admit when we don't have all the answers. In doing so, we show that we are human, fallible, and ever-growing, just like everyone else. When we practice vulnerability, we give others permission to do the same. In this mutual exchange of openness, we foster a deeper sense of connection, as it's through vulnerability that we truly see and understand each other. It is through sharing our fears, hopes, dreams, and struggles that we begin to recognize the common threads that unite us. The more we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, the more we encourage others to drop their defenses and connect from a place of honesty and mutual respect. In relationships, vulnerability nurtures intimacy. True intimacy is not built on surface-level interactions, but on the willingness to be open and exposed. When we are vulnerable with someone, we trust them enough to share our deepest feelings, fears, and desires. This creates a bond that goes beyond superficial interactions and into the realm of true connection. It is through these moments of vulnerability that we feel seen, heard, and understood, which in turn strengthens our emotional closeness with others. Furthermore, vulnerability enables empathy. When we share our struggles or our humanity with others, we create a space for them to reflect on their own experiences and to offer empathy in return. It is through vulnerability that we connect on a deeper emotional level, recognizing that we are not alone in our challenges or our feelings. Vulnerability allows us to break down the walls that divide us and to experience the shared human experience in a more profound and meaningful way. Many of us fear that vulnerability will lead to rejection or hurt. While vulnerability does carry the risk of being misunderstood or hurt, it is also the gateway to authentic connection. By allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, we give others the opportunity to respond with compassion, empathy, and understanding. Even if rejection occurs, vulnerability helps us to grow and learn from the experience, as it reveals more about ourselves and the nature of our connections with others. As we move through 2025, let's commit to embracing vulnerability as a cornerstone of authenticity. Let's practice showing up as our true selves without fear of judgment or rejection. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we invite others to do the same. And we create space for relationships to flourish based on trust, empathy, and mutual understanding. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it is a strength. It is the courage to be seen, to be real, and to form deep, meaningful connections with those around us. So let's choose vulnerability not as an act of exposure, but as a powerful tool for creating connection, understanding, and growth. In doing so, we open the door to richer, more authentic relationships that are based on truth, compassion, and mutual respect. It is through vulnerability that we build the relationships that truly matter. In closing, remember this: authenticity, vulnerability, setting boundaries and embracing conflict are not just concepts, they are practices. They are the powerful tools that shape our lives and the way we connect with others. These principles challenge us to show up as our truest selves, to embrace discomfort as a catalyst for growth, and to honor our needs without apology. They are the foundation upon which we can build deeper, more meaningful relationships, not only with others, but with ourselves. So in 2025, let's commit to living with greater authenticity. Let's practice saying no when necessary, set boundaries with compassion, embrace conflict as a chance to grow, and most importantly, let vulnerability guide us in forming connections that are real and lasting. This is how we move toward a life that feels full, grounded, and deeply connected. Thank you.